now I've seen a few people ask this question. How is it okay to share outputs on a PDM? For example, if you've got an R3 or a PD16, you've got, say, 4 or whatever it is, 25 amp high current outputs. Can I just connect them all together and drive 100 amp load? And I've seen some people online saying, yes, you can, it works fine. I've done it heaps of times. And other people saying, well, I've tried it and it didn't seem to be all that repeatable. So I can tell you that it wasn't intended to do that. And I'll tell you why that is. It's for a couple of reasons. First of all, in the ECU, you've got, I'll just draw it as a switch there, which is the switching FET. I'll just draw a current measuring thing there as an ammeter. So each of these outputs has got their own current channel on it, and in NSP you can see how many amps each channel is drawing. There's also a separate channel there for the load on each channel, and that will tell you what percentage, it's almost like what percentage of the rated current, whatever your fuse current set to, but it's more complicated than that. It tells you how close it is to tripping on the current. So let's say, for argument's sake, you're trying to drive a 15 amp water pump or something, or a 15 amp thermo fan from 2 8 amp outputs. And we've got 2 8 amp outputs here, number 1, number 2, and we're connecting them together, and we're driving them, connecting that to our fan motor, and connecting it to ground. So there are a few problems with this. So number 1 is the current sharing. Just because they're connected together like that doesn't mean that they're going to share the current equally between them. So if this is 15 amps, that's not going to be 7.5 and 7.5. It depends on how good their connections are here, how good your splices are here, and all that sort of thing. Now, there is one saving grace, which is the whichever output is drawing more current is going to increase its resistance, which means that it won't be turning on as hard, and more of the current will go to the other one then. So they'll sort of tend towards equalizing out, but only because one of them's going to be getting too hot. So that's a problem. So they're not going to share current perfectly equally, although it's probably good enough in most circumstances. The other problem is the current limit. So let's say in this case you want to set the maximum current here to be 20 amps for the fan motor. If you set this to, what are you supposed to set the fuse currents here to in the software is the question. Because you can try set them both to 10 amps. What's going to happen though is that if one of them goes over 10 amps because they're not sharing the current equally, then that one's going to be switched off by the software, and then all the current's going to go through the other one, and then switch that one off as well, because it's suddenly you're drawing the whole current, which is probably not the intention. Although again, if you've connected it up and they are sharing the current equally, then it probably won't be too much of a problem. But it's a matter of, you have to remember that when you're putting these things in the software, then that's, you know, not going to add perfectly to give whatever your current limit's going to be that. And the other thing that you definitely can't do is pulse-width modulate them, because let's say we want to slow down this fan. If this output here is supposed to look like, say, a 50% duty cycle, and this one here is a 50% duty cycle as well, there's nothing that's going to guarantee that these things are actually in phase. And they should be the same frequency, well, they will be the same frequency if you set them to the same frequency, but there's nothing that guarantees the phase relationship between the two. So if that's, say, a 50% duty cycle there, and that's 50%, but they're not in phase, then for that part of the waveform, this one's driving the motor. For this part in the middle here, they're both sharing the motor current. And then for this part of the waveform, the second one's driving the motor. So the actual duty cycle ends up being about 75% here. But both the outputs are going to indicate a much higher current than they're intended to. So yeah, it might work and you might get it to work, but this is why it's not recommended. Basically, it's not recommended because we can't be confident it's going to work in the majority of circumstances that people are going to use it in. So yeah, if you want to run something like an electric power steering pump that draws 80 amps, then you basically need to use an SSR to do that. You can't just join up 3 or 4 of your 25 amp outputs. And if you want to run things like multiple cooling fans or fuel pumps or things like that, then yeah, having 25 amp outputs is much better because for a start your compulsors modulate them faster than the 8 amp outputs. So you can drive them at variable speeds, all that sort of thing. And that way you get better instrumentation and stuff anyway. So I hope that helps. Thank you.